What's going on, everyone? And welcome back to another great epic episode of Just My Opinion Reviews. Guys, we are talking Conclave. Yes, Conclave. Guys, I want to let you know that this is going to be spoiler-filled. Me and my guests are going to spoil this film up, down, left, right, in, and out as if you've already seen the movie. That is your warning. And as you see, I'm not by myself. I got my homie, I got my home skillet, my home slice, Miss Kimberly Curran from Southern California. Ma'am, how you doing over there? Loving that energy?
Yeah, I'm good. I gotta say, Brandon, I'm excited about movies this year. I think we all should be, and
Yes.
I know Conclave is technically 5 days outside of this year, in terms of when it came out. But dude, let's get into this.
Yes. Yes.
Whoa,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it. I mean, you are the perfect person to be talking about this film with, and I'm very, very excited. That's what I was saying before we hit record. I would say probably, you and E-Man, because out of the whole crew, I mean, I'm not saying that you're super duper religious, but I've talked to you the most about religion, spirituality, and also E-Man. And so
Yeah,
this is kind of in
yeah.
our backyard. I do have some questions that I'm going to ask you that I am not entirely 100% on with this film. Not saying that it was bad or plot holes. I just want to clarify some things. But with all that being said, I am really, really excited to get into this with you. Now, this is being directed by Mr. Edward Berger. Are you familiar with this gentleman, Kimberly?
I know he did All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yes.
Um, and um, I didn't make
Jack.
it all the way through the film because
Oh,
war
okay.
war film. I love war films, and you know this. I love history. I love war films, but it just got to me, and I actually need to pick it back up. And
I
that's a
got you.
good thing. The man's done his job. That's a tough story, but that was brilliant, and he got I think 9 nominations or something crazy like that. So he actually hasn't done a whole lot of films. So I was very excited to see, what are you doing next? And man, he picked a good one.
Yeah, yeah, he did. And this film is filled with just a huge pool of talent. We have Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, and a number of other people in this film, some that are somewhat recognizable than others. But I'll just go ahead and get to the nitty gritty, Kim. This was just a conglomerate of great acting across the board, top to bottom, up, down, left, right, in, and out. And as right before we hit record, we were both expressing how excited we are to talk about this film, but also just how it's nice to talk about films that are not normally our favorites or most anticipated of the year. Just something to where if we saw a poster, unless we were just super duper fans of the director or the lead talent, some of us may see it, some of us may, pass us by or just, okay, that doesn't really just pique my interest because I got an invitation to see this back in October of last year,
Mhm.
2024. And, I read the
Yeah,
synopsis. I looked at the post. I was like, yeah, I like all the people involved, but, this just isn't jumping out of me right now. And I slept on
yeah.
it. And that's just so unfortunate because after watching it, I really did enjoy this film. I damn near loved it. I don't want to go as far as
Mhm.
saying that it's the best ever because there's a lot of film that I did not get to see in 2024, which I will be making up at the beginning of this year, the first quarter of 2025, and we can talk about that towards the latter half of this review. But this movie was incredible. I did not know what to expect. I didn't know if it was literally a conspiracy going on who was going to become the new pope of the Roman Catholic Church,
Yeah,
or if everyone was being paranoid. And I am not. I mean, of course, I've heard about Rome, Italy, the Catholic Church, Roman Catholic Church all my life.
yeah,
Seen this a little bit in
yeah.
movies, seen this a little bit in television, seen a little bit in social media, all over the place during my life. But this
Mhm.
film here gave me more information in this 2 hour runtime than I've ever had in my entire life when it comes to the Roman Catholic Church. And when I think of the Catholic Church and the priest and popes and none,
Yeah,
the imagery that I always see is that these are perfectionists. Like these people, don't do wrong. They don't sin. If they do, it's very, very minimum. Just super duper holier than thou. And I know
Mhm.
that's kind of ignorant to think that way, but it's just the image that they have put forth on my life that made me think this way.
I
But
agree. I agree. Yeah.
this film unveils it all. I'm like, these are normal human beings, and they have to go to the bathroom just like everybody else. Nobody is perfect. And it was one scene towards the end, the gentleman that actually became the Pope, and I'm not going to jump too far ahead.
Mhm.
He had when he gave his speech in the auditorium, he was like,
Yeah.
these last few days is just a revelation that we are all petty men, and we care more about ourselves more than anything else. And I was just like, wow, wow. And we'll talk about what those words led to towards the end of the movie. But I mean, it was just kind of scenes like that to where I just thoroughly enjoyed. And I'm just kind of mad at myself that I didn't see this film much earlier, possibly when everybody else was. But we're in award season now, and so it'll get back in circulation. But overall, Kim, I really did enjoy it. What were your general thoughts? Go ahead, let us know.
Um, I'm a huge fan of the slow burn,
Hmm.
and there's many different types of thrillers, if you will, and one type of thriller that I've always been drawn to is a conversational thriller, a thriller where most of the mystery takes place in hushed tones between two people, in looks across the room, and there's no one's rolling on the carpet, looking through drawers with a flashlight, to get to the bottom of it, whatever it is. It's not that type of thriller. This is a thriller where there's something hidden, there's some sin, there's some crime, there's some wrongdoing, and it's only discovered through these quiet, silent, conversational moments. And I love these films, Brandon, because I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm down for my Christopher McQuarrie. Like, I love my Mission Impossibles. Like, I love let's jump off a train while we're on a motorcycle with a parachute. Like, I love that. But I also love these moments that are also very practical because it gives us a peek into a world that is so high. That's why I'm a huge fan of The West Wing, because this is a situation that is so above all of our pay grade. This is an organization, be it the White House, be it the Roman Catholic Church, or the CIA, or something like that. I like films of this nature because these larger than life scenarios, these traditions that have been passed on that are so above our head, I like a peek inside of worlds that are real and
Hmm.
way above our head and have a reality that once we see it through such a human connection as a conversation, as these guys who are some of the most famous men in the world in a cafeteria
Hmm. Hmm.
having a disagreement. Like these are, it's to me, it's like a peek inside the Oval Office. It's like
Oh yeah.
hearing not the crazy running down the hall, oh my gosh, planes have hit the Twin Towers. I'm interested in the conversation in the decision rooms, in over coffee, over whiskey and a cigar, these decisions that make history. That is fascinating to me, Brandon.
Yes. Yes.
And this film really reminded me of one of my favorite older films, by Sidney Lumet, 12 Angry Men. This is the kind of stuff I love. I love that it's got this intensity of, like, 12 Angry Men was so good they remade it. I mean, it's such a classic, but it's literally a bunch of men in a room having heated conversations.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's a classic. It's one of the top films of the century, And so I feel like this is going to be one of those films because, like it or not, whatever you feel about the Roman Catholic Church, it's interesting. It's mysterious. And I'm not saying mysterious always in a good way. I mean, with films like Spotlight, we realize the mysteriousness led to horrible things. But I've always been interested in the papacy. I've always been interested in how popes come to be. I know as a Christian, sometimes I hate division. You know that. I'm like, look, Jesus died for us, bro. Like, I don't like that you wear this robe, but you don't like. I'm not a huge fan of all this separate. Well, I'm a Baptist. Well, I'm Episcopal. Well, I'm Catholic. I'm like, dude, God loves us, and Jesus' blood was red. That's what's important to me. But nonetheless, I find interest. If a Jewish friend of mine invites me to temple, I will go. I'm very interested in other forms of worship. I'm very interested. I had a Catholic friend invite me to mass. I've never been to a mass, and they were explaining it to me, and I was just like, man, I would let me time and place, man. I'm very interested in this. I studied biblical history and apologetics in college. And I just, Brandon, I was just fascinated. When I saw Ray Fine in the trailer and
Hmm.
John Lithgow, I was
Hmm.
like, day one. But then when I saw Stanley Tucci, I was like, oh, this is going to be
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah.
So
You're
yeah, I'm actually very excited about this type of storytelling and content.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna comment on a number of things you just said, of course. But Conclave, some people don't care about spoilers, and you may just be clicking on this video not knowing exactly what the movie is about, other than the Roman Catholic Church. But it's described as a conspiracy thriller, drama, mystery thriller. When Cardinal Lawrence, and the titular character for that is Ralph Fiennes. He's in the poster here.
Right.
Is tasked with leading one of the world's most secretive and ancient events, selecting a new pope. He finds himself at the center of a conspiracy that could shake the very foundation of the Catholic Church. And so, if that sounds interesting to you, I think you'll have a great time. Even if it doesn't, I mean, you'll at least appreciate the great acting. And like I said, we got it across the board. You said that you don't really care. I mean, you like thrillers, and you're not talking about the
Oh, I love
flashlight
thrillers of all
at
kinds,
night
but
with looking through drawers. It's the conversation, it's the
yeah.
dialogue between the characters. My
Mhm.
favorite part of the movie was the conversation between Aldo and Lawrence, Ralph
Mhm.
Fiennes. Is it Ray Fiennes or Ralph Fiennes? I'm tripping.
Ray. It's
Ray,
it's
Ray.
spelled like Ralph, but it's Ray.
Okay. Ray Fiennes and Stanley Tucci. I mean, they're friends. They respect each other. They love each other. If they had children, and I was gonna try to make an example, but that doesn't make any sense. But they down for each other, 10 toes deep. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I loved it when they were. I mean, I'm not saying I'm a advocate for arguing and heated debates, but I did appreciate it here because they were both passionate about their feelings and convictions, and them raising their
Yeah.
voices towards each other. I was like, man, they are really going through it right now. When
Mhm.
Stanley Tucci's character, Bellini, I guess he was outside of his room, his dorm room or apartment room, and he had
Mhm.
his head down. But then
Mhm.
Lawrence came over and started talking to him. That scene right there was one of my favorites. He's like, this is not a war. He's like, this is a war. This is a spiritual war. You have to pick a side, and you're not doing that. And then he walked off. I was like, oh, this has award recognition all over it. And I actually took that scene back, because it was so impactful to me that
Mhm.
I had to see it again because it was just that great. And that's not the only
Mhm.
time. They had another conversation like this in the stairwell. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just it was all over the place as far as these conversations between either two people, three people, or a group of men. Very dialogue heavy film at
Mhm.
times, and yeah, it's just chef's kiss to me. But
Mhm.
one of the things that was really interesting to me is, what is his name? The guy that they did not want Tedesco, played by Sergio Castellito.
Castellito.
Castellito. I can do better at
Yeah,
pronouncing that.
Castellito.
He
I
kept
love that guy, by the way. He's one of those actors that you see him a lot, and you're like just like Lucian Samati that played the African priest. He's one of those actors that you've seen him a lot, and then when you see him, you're like, oh, that's that dude. Like he's really appeared in a lot of films. Where I just really like him. I like his energy. But yeah, I just want to mention that because he's one of those actors that we don't really know his name, but when we see him, we like him.
right. That's
Yeah.
that's definitely that's definitely the case with me. But about his character, he kept bringing up his liberal colleagues. Liberal conservative. I did not know that these ministers, these priests, had this mindset. I just kind of thought they was all, one mindset, one mind, but
Yeah.
no, they have completely different religious and or political beliefs. And I just was not aware of that. This was a
Mm,
fresh take for me. And also, when they were towards the beginning of the film in the first act, when they was in the cafeteria eating at the table, you saw
yeah.
everybody, or in the or some room, you saw everybody was divided based off their ethnicity or language. It was like, okay, those are the Italians over there, those are the Africans, those are the Americans. I was like, what is
All these
going on?
cardinals are like, it was like prison,
Yeah.
actually, if you think
Hmm.
about it, in the cafeteria. It was like prison. And the funny thing, Brandon, is when I think of cardinals and priests, and by the way, I do not know a whole lot about the hierarchy of the Catholic Church, so you have to forgive me if I'm ignorant on
No,
a few things, because I
no,
am
you're
ignorant
good.
about it. That's another thing I love about kind of slower films. If a film looks really boring, sometimes one of the first things I think of is, oh, I think I'll learn something,
Hmm.
because I learned so much more than I knew. But it reminded me, when I think of priests and cardinals and the Pope, I think of like how holy they had to have been their whole life. And when you think of like you hear stories of like kids in the cafeteria that were teasing someone, or they saw a kid sitting alone, and you think of that one kid that gets up and takes his little old tray with his
Hmm.
chocolate milk and says, "I'm going to sit by you, my little brown friend," or
Yeah.
something. Like, you think these guys should be that type of person where they would go, I love my Italian brothers, but I'm going to go sit with my African brothers. Like, you think as priests that this is just who they are, that they would never just be like, no, I want to go sit with people who are like me and think like me and look like me. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I felt like this film, it did so much. It explored perception, which is what you and I have, because you and I do not have experience. We might have someone on the podcast that has, that goes to mass every Sunday, that has perception and reality because they've lived it. You and I only have perception because we have not been to mass. We have not grown up in the Catholic Church. So for us, all we have is perception. And so to gain education is something very beautiful that this film explores. But I love that it showed the beauty of the members of the Catholic Church, the leadership, but it also showed, hey, don't get your perceptions twisted. These are men.
Yes.
They
Yes.
are jealous. They are back. At some points, I'm like, are you women? Like,
Yeah.
you're gossiping. You're,
Yeah.
and the way, I don't know if you caught it, but when, and we should talk about Isabella Rossellini. Oh, that
Is that
woman,
is
I
that is that is
love,
that is that
I
Sister
love
Agnes?
her.
Is that
Sister
Sister
Agnes,
Agnes?
I
Yeah.
love her. Um, and that scene in the cafeteria, where she's standing between, Tremblay, John
Uh-huh.
Lithgow's character, and Lawrence, and she's spilling some tea, and Tedesco's just in the middle, and he's smoking on his, I don't, was it a cigarette or a vape pen? And it's so funny, Brandon, because he was in the middle, and he goes,
Yeah. Yeah. Like, oh, what do we have here? Yeah. Yeah.
and he's like dropping the tea. Oh,
Hmm.
ooh, ooh. Like, he just had this look of
Yeah.
like, I'm just in here in the middle, like getting the tea, like, please
Right.
say more. And I'm
Right.
like, this is
This is
gossip,
high school. Yeah.
priest. Like, come
This is
on,
silly.
bro.
This is silly.
Aren't you all supposed to be above that? I think that's something we walk away in this film saying, wow, I thought you were all above this. But this
Yeah.
film shows you, no, and let me show you the details of how. That's
Right.
the
Right.
coolest thing about this film.
Right. About that, even though, we put them on a pedestal, or at least some people do, or at least I'll just speak for myself, I did. And it's petty high school drama, but at the same time,
Yeah.
I do like the way that they handled the situation. Especially when it does come to Ray Fiennes' character Lawrence, because he was just, very honest, very upfront, would go straight to the source and be like, hey, I just came and talked to this gentleman over here. He said that you were the last person to meet with the Pope and said that you're, trying to do this under the table. Is this true? Yes, no. I'm sorry I have to ask, but I'm just trying to do my job as a dean. And then he goes on about his business. I mean, even towards the end, where he went to Sister Agnes and was trying to make the 108 copies, like my jaw hit the floor. when he was like putting the envelopes at everybody's table, like, hey, we ain't having no secrets in here. We're about to expose this all. I was really frustrated. Well, I don't want to jump
I
around too much, but I love that scene, and it leads into what you just said. I was like, hey, this is a good leader right here. He does not want to be the Pope. He doesn't want to
it's like that.
assume the role of the papacy, the office of
Hmm.
authority of the Pope, but he is the
Yeah,
perfect man for the job. Because not only in this film, we've seen other movies before, even Gladiator in 2000. It's like,
yeah.
Commodus, he wanted to be the emperor, but Russell Crowe's character didn't. And the person best for
Hmm.
the position is not the one that wants it or is ambitious for it,
That right
And so
there. Yep.
Stanley
Yep.
Tucci, Bellini, he didn't want it. Lawrence didn't want it, and I love that, and I love Lawrence's character, because
Yeah.
he was just a humble guy. Another scene that really stood out to me was, it wasn't the eulogy of the Pope. I think they called it the homily or the homily.
The
When
homily.
There you go, there you go.
I
And
think, does that mean message, or is that almost like does that mean sermon? I think.
let me try
Let's
to
look it up. Let's
A
learn.
homily is a short sermon or religious speech that provides moral correction or encouragement. It is
Okay.
commentary that is given after a scripture reading and explains the meaning of a sacred text or doctrine. The goal of a homily is to develop a practical application for the spiritual or moral life from the chosen subject or text. What blew me away
There you go.
during this scene was when he spoke about certainty, and he said certainty. Oh, I forgot exactly what he said, but it robs you of your faith or something like that. And then he said Jesus was not even certain, when he was on the cross asking God, please forgive them. I forgot the scripture
Can I
exactly.
read it? Because I
Okay,
made a
please,
note.
please,
I made
please
a
do.
note. Sorry, I got to bust out my notes because I took a lot of notes on this film. And he said, the sin which I fear above all others is certainty. Certainty is the great enemy of unity.
There you go. There you go.
Certainty is, yeah, the great enemy of unity. And he also said, oh, certainty is I think, the death of tolerance.
Yeah, that does sound
Yeah,
familiar.
that
That does
was
sound familiar.
powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I never would have
so
thought
powerful.
that
Ooh,
somebody, or at least the dean in the Roman Catholic Church, would have had that mindset. Like,
yeah,
what do you mean? I
yeah.
mean, I don't know, because he said we need a pope, a priest that has doubts. Like, how do you? I don't know. I've never. I don't want to say never, but like I've always been taught that you shouldn't doubt God. You either believe in Him or you don't. But they were like these people that I put up on the pedestal as far as their religious spiritual faith is concerned all my life. I never would have thought that they would, not have certainty or would have doubts. And so that was just truly an eye opener for
Well,
me.
I should add in something that relates totally to what you just said. Is he said faith is important because it walks hand in hand with doubt, and I thought that was
Yeah.
really, really powerful. I love it in church when somebody says some truth
Hmm.
that's like something that's hard to hear or that's outside of what you thought, and that's really kind of cutting, but it's like,
Yeah.
girl, honey, that's when you pull out that fan, honey. Get me up in the Catholic Church in that homily. I'd be like,
Right.
well,
Right. Right. Right.
well.
Right. 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 Right.
So I think faith walking hand in hand with doubt, and he said no certainty, no doubt, no mystery, there was no need for faith.
Yeah. 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 I was like, damn.
Like,
Yeah.
he
I
really went
reacted the
into
same.
that and explored that. That was beautiful. That was beautiful because, like, how could you have faith if you don't kind of doubt first and go, "Is this really real?" And then you
Yeah.
come back around and go, "You know what? Yeah, it is," and I stand on that. I
Right.
think doubt is beautiful. I love that scene, Brandon.
Yeah, yeah, me too, me too. I never saw that coming. Excuse me, and that was a real eye opener for me. And another one is like we need a pope that will or does sin, but will continue to ask for forgiveness. And I was like,
Yes.
wow. I mean, this movie just really humanized all these people, all these cardinals in this church, and I just didn't expect that. And another way it humanizes them is at the beginning. You saw like three of them on the side smoking cigarettes, and then there was like a shot of a pile of cigarettes on the ground. I was like, what? Okay. I mean, I'm
I
not mad
didn't
at them.
know they could
Yeah.
smoke. I'm like, you can't have sex,
Yeah.
but you can smoke. Like, I didn't know that they could
Yeah.
smoke, and I didn't know they could drink alcohol. I knew that Catholics did real red wine at because we be up in church with Welch's, praise God. But I didn't know they did. I didn't know they did real red wine
Yeah.
for communion, and I think that's wonderful and beautiful. But they were like also with this chicken salad, like also with this. I'm like, you guys are having wine at every meal,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay? And then he
Yeah.
mentioned that one priest that came to him with the first secret because I don't know if you picked up on this, Brandon, but Lawrence was so patient because how many times did somebody come to him late in the game, like, I
I got
got
something
something
to
to
tell
tell
you.
you? And he's like, oh, you are a day late and a dollar short. Like,
Yeah.
how could you not tell me that 8 days ago? And they're like,
No.
I don't know, but I'm telling you now. And he's like, somebody talk to me in the moment, please. But he didn't want to believe the first guy because I think he was talking about Tremblay, which this was the first thing in the film where I was like, because it happened, I think, in the first 30 minutes where I was like, oh, this is going to be good. Where he's like, his last meeting with the Pope, he got sacked, bro. He got
Yeah.
fired.
Yeah.
And he was like, is this true? Or you know how you are with your drinking? And I was like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we know he has a drinking problem? Like, okay. All
Let me
right.
let, let me ask you, if there's anything you didn't like about the film, you can let me know now. But did you feel that there were any, and there's a reason why I'm asking this now, did you feel like there was anything that was unresolved or unanswered as far as the plot is concerned that they
Yeah.
presented to us? Because I do. I do. But
Yeah, bro, I do, Brandon, and I think one of the things was what I just mentioned with Tremblay. I mean, this guy, I think it was all insinuated because there were times where the writing was on the wall, especially with the young lady and Cardinal Ademi,
mhm.
uh, the nun that they just flew in from Nigeria. Um, but in terms of that meeting, there was the it was insinuated that yeah he got fired but also it kind of wasn't clear because the other guy was like oh no there's absolutely no reason you should think that. And then his dude that was giving him all the secrets, which was O'Malley,
Uh,
played by Brian O'Brien.
He had the purple thing.
O'Malley was
He had the
getting
purple thing on.
yeah, who was
Okay.
like,
Okay.
if you want, I could find out this secret for you. And he's like,
Yeah.
sometimes he was like, yeah, go find out. And sometimes he was like, enough with the secrets.
Right.
But O'Malley was there with this, honey, he had the tea bags.
Yeah, he did.
Okay. He had the tea
Yeah,
and
he
the
did.
hot water. And he was like, well, word on the street is like, there's a report. Like, I kind of maybe let him know that it was on paper, even though we both know it wasn't. Like, he was playing games with the guy that was like emphatic of like, no, of course not. And he led him to believe like, oh, but what about the report?
Yeah.
And the guy was caught in a lie, like, yes, the report. Haha, yes. And so that kind of wasn't solved for me, even though I kind of feel like learning about Tremblay's character that, yeah, bro, you probably got sacked.
Yeah.
But another thing that actually I don't want to say it was unresolved, Brandon, and I did not like it. I like this when Stanley Tucci's character Bellini said to him, because like 5 people voted for him, and he's like,
Mm-hmm.
"What's that all about?" And he's like, "Oh, I think people just are trying to be nice. Like, I don't want it. Like, it's 5 votes. Trust me. Come day 2, they'll be gone." And he's like, "Don't tell me you didn't want it. Don't tell me you don't actually want it." He's like, "No, I don't want that stress." And him, he was
Yeah.
like,
Everybody does.
"Everybody wants it."
Yeah.
But then he's like, "Absolutely not. No." But then when they were having the conversation outside by the little banister thing, and he goes, "Well, if you were going to be pope, what would be your name?" And he had a name picked out.
Yeah. That's
So
true.
if you really didn't want it, and I'm never thinking about that, that's like saying that's the equivalent of going, which my friends have asked me all the time. Do you ever want to get married? And I'm like, no, no, I don't care. But I've been carrying around a wedding dress clip from 1998 in my wallet.
Oh wow.
And
Really?
Barge, spring
Okay.
collection, 1997.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that's like
Dang.
me going, no, I don't want to be married. I never think about it. I never think about it. And my friend being like, what's that in your wallet? I'm
Yeah.
like, is this a
Yeah.
wedding dress I've been carrying around for 25 years?
Yeah.
Like he had a name picked out. Like, don't say you don't want this. And as humble as Lawrence was, and I love him for that, you still wanted a little bit of the power, bro.
Well, I was
You
I'm
want the
following you.
cheese. You want the
I'm gonna push
cheese.
back. I feel like so Bellini and Lawrence, they both stated that they didn't want it. I honestly felt like Lawrence didn't want it. I felt that Bellini wanted it just a little bit. Like he wouldn't go for it, you know what I'm saying? But he wouldn't be disappointed if he got the job. I felt like if Lawrence got the job, he would be pissed off, like, damn it, you know? But I mean, that's just me. You made a good point. But something that was kind of frustrating me, and it resolved itself is they are saying that they don't want the job, but they was never that vocal about it. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know the rules, but I just would have stood up like, please, guys, don't vote for me. I don't want the job. I was like, why don't they do that? But Lawrence only did
Yeah.
that in private with the guy that ended up getting it. And I don't,
Yes.
what is
Yes.
his name? I can't find it right now, but what is this? It started with a B
No,
as
his
well.
name is Benitez.
There you go.
Benitez.
From, Carlos
Yeah.
Diehz
Yes,
Benitez,
it's just spelled different. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? Okay.
it's funny because something that stood out to me with Ademi, the African cardinal,
Hmm.
is when he said something that really got to me as a believer, and he wanted it so bad.
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
wanted it so bad you could taste it. Because the way he cried, I was like, bro, man up, cowboy up. He was like,
Oh, really?
ugh. And I'm like, you baby. Like
Really,
he
Kim?
wanted it like, oh yeah, he wanted that so much. And he's like, but something that stood out to me is he said, I'm ready. I'm ready for this burden. And I'm like, the way he said it was like Benitez, I believe, is someone that when he accepted it was like it took him two questions like, are you ready for this? Do you accept? And he's like, do you accept? And he's like, I mean, I will. I believe in his heart, he truly believed, I'm ready for this burden. Like, it is a humble thing to be ready to lead not just a nation, a worldwide community of people in a relationship with God. That is a burden. If you think it's all going to be roses and meetings, and it is a burden, it is heavy. When there's things that happen in the world, September 11th, and all this stuff, and people come to you and go, what are we supposed to think about this? It is a heavy, heavy,
Hmm. Hmm.
heavy, excuse me, burden of power,
Yeah.
which Benitez understood. And I believe that's why he accepted so humbly. But Ademi, the way he said it was like, I'm so ready for this burden. And I was like,
Oh, really?
you want the power and you're not grasping how heavy it is, because to me, Ademi he just wanted the power. Because if you look at him as a man, and I feel the same way about Tedesco. And I don't know if you caught this in the
Tedesco,
beginning
yes, but keep going.
when he arrived and the young man was like, oh, can I take your bags? And he smacked him.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
He
I'm
wasn't
glad you brought
like,
that up.
no. He was like, bop,
Yeah, that was
no. And I
crazy.
was like, oh, we don't need to put our hands on people. But like, I don't want to say, I won't say that, but what a jerk. Like, what a jerk to do that. But Ademi, it seems like we disagree on this point, but Brandon, he wanted it. He was so unkind to that woman. If you were a man of the holy caliber to be the father over a world community, you would be like, oh, my sister, I apologize for what I did 30 years ago. You would welcome her with more apologies for what you did and what you did to her. You ruined her, for her village. She was 19 years old. And instead you freaking throw a tray on the ground and storm out. And the way he stormed out was like so prideful and arrogant. And I'm like, if you're a true priest, if you're a true holy man, you go, oh, it's you. Oh my God.
Okay.
I apologize once again. You're gracious. He was such a
Okay.
jerk.
Let me jump in here. I've been got to get this off my chest. You made a good point here towards the end. You do, but I'm a pushback. I disagree
Please.
with you. First of all, let's back up to where you said man up. Wait a minute. This dude has been working and had, I mean, this is what, 3 doctoral degrees of time, 30 plus years of wanting a job or aspiring to have and there's nothing wrong with aspiring to have a job, to be ambitious. That's not a bad thing. But first of all, what's wrong with it? Is there something wrong with a man crying? So where
not at all.
Hold on, you're getting dressed, somebody knocking on your door, like, oh, you ready? All right, let me get my coat. Hold on, player. We got to talk real quick. You're not going to be Pope. Out of nowhere. I'm sorry, I know you're a good man, but because of this thing you did 30 plus years ago, which was bad, I'm not excusing it. It was legal. It wasn't rape or anything like that. And I don't know if the age is in Lagos or in Nigeria or whatever. But in my opinion, a 30-year-old should not be sleeping with a 19-year-old. I mean, it's not.
No, you pedo. No.
It's not. No, I'm not going to call him a pedo. I'm not going to do it. I would never, but it doesn't look good. Let's just say that. But for that to be, you like, it's New Year's Eve, you know what I'm saying? You finna go hit the club and all of a sudden, you
but he wasn't in the world. He was a priest. He wasn't in the world. He was a priest.
What does that? What do you mean? What I got to do with anything?
Because when you're a priest, like before you're a priest, like of course you're gonna be in the world. But once you're a priest, you shouldn't be at anybody's party. You shouldn't be partying with 19-year-olds when you're a priest. He was a priest. I'm sorry.
My fault. Horrible example. I was speaking of at the present time, the age that he was at. I guess he had on his.
Oh, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying about age. Like she wasn't 16.
No. I'm not even talking about that no more. I'm just saying that he was ready to go out and do whatever with Lawrence. Lawrence knocked on the door. He was like, "Hey man, I'll be ready in a second." He was in the best mood. It was like on the second or third round of the ballots, he has majority of the votes. And then all of a sudden, he's just eating lunch at his table. And then a woman from his past 30 years ago just shows up, like right. I mean, the timing. I mean, this was orchestrated.
For sure.
30, and we know that's not a secret. I mean, they revealed that. I don't blame, and I don't even think he didn't throw the tray down. I think that she dropped the tray, and then he didn't even storm off. I mean, he
did. He yelled at her, and then he stormed off. He said,
I have to go back. I didn't hear a yell. I could be wrong, but he walked away. He walked away aggressively. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. I don't know. I am not mad at his reaction for seeing somebody he slept with 30 plus years ago showing up hours in the middle of the conclave. I would be frustrated too. I mean, he's a human being, as we talked about. These are human people. So that, and when we was talking about earlier, and I asked you things that you didn't like, unresolved issues. That whole thing was unresolved for me. Why either Lawrence is lying or the Pope that died actually asked him, "Hey man, I need you to go and pick up this young lady from Nigeria and bring her in." Like, what was the reason for that? Like, what was I don't think that was ever addressed, and that kind of
that wasn't addressed. And I think it bothered me too. I agree. We agree there. It bothered me, but I think possibly because I'm thinking of, the standard that a pope is supposed to have. The standard as a human being they're supposed to have. And although they weren't always saved they didn't come out of the womb a priest, they had a life before. But if you did something during your time as a priest and you swept it under the rug, there's two things I'm thinking about here. One is this: this story takes place in modern times. It doesn't
Okay.
take place in the 60s. It doesn't take place outside of the internet. If I'm the current pope and I know I'm dying and I know this guy is a good runner up and I know how newspapers work, I know after, especially after the scandal with the Catholic Church and the all the child abuse, I know if you think you could sweep this under the rug, all it's going to take is a good newspaper reporter from New York to find this girl. To me, I'm not mad at the Pope for doing it because you basically expedited a situation that was bound to happen before it could
Okay.
cause mass chaos.
I'll give you that. I'll give
Somebody's
you
going
that.
to find the story out. I might as well get it out here because you could very well be Pope. I like you, but you swept this under the rug. And if I know it, you better believe as soon as people see a black Pope
Yeah.
once again, you
Yeah.
think they're not going to find this girl and the sun is not going to come out. I'm just expediting this story
Okay.
coming out. And it seems dirty, but I got to do it because again, I'm the leader of a community of worldwide, not even a nation. So I think it was dirty, but I think it was a necessary evil, if you will, Brandon, because that story was going to come out. That girl, if she was willing to get on a plane and fly to Rome, and I don't know that she was a real nun. For all I know, she was wearing a costume. Like, if you're willing to do that, you're willing to talk to TMZ. You're willing to talk to the highest bidder for your story.
I'll give you
So
that.
I'm
I'll
not,
give you that.
I'm part of me,
I'll
I'm
give you that.
like, ooh, they're so dirty for putting that girl on the plane. But the other part of me is like, this is the Catholic Church. What are you thinking, dude? You have this in your closet and you didn't come forward because
Okay.
you could have
Okay.
split the narrative.
Okay. Good. Good.
You
Good,
could have
good
come
point. Good
forward
point.
and had a story of redemption, but you did
Okay.
it dirty to
You
yourself.
you win. You win. I couldn't remember if he was actually a pope at the age of 30 or not, or a priest. Excuse me. Okay. Good point. Good point.
But I
Something.
understand why you disagree with me. I get it. Like, but also I want to say I'm an advocate for men crying. I do not believe that men shouldn't cry. I think men crying is very healthy. It's the way he was doing it was like I felt spoiled brat energy rather than
Oh
I'm
wow.
such a good man. I'm such a good man. I can't believe this happened to me. I felt like I wanted to get away with that kind of energy. But I'm all for
I
men crying.
I am in the middle of that last statement. I don't think he was trying to get away with it. I mean, it can be frowned upon, but I'm just saying, I mean, even in America, 30-year-olds do sleep with 19-year-olds. I don't have any interest in doing, but I mean, that's not, she wasn't 15. She was not, I'm not excusing the behavior, guys. I'm just saying. Okay, what about the guy that was drunk at the beginning? Who made the commentary of Lithgow, like, oh, he was well, I guess that's the same answer that you just gave. They're just trying to narrow out the bad, the not the best candidates, you know.
It's like at the end, when O'Malley, like, they're having that conversation and he's like, dude, what are you so upset about? Like, we have a pope, light the white smoke, my dude. Like, and he kind of walked away like, okay, I'll let it go. There's a clinic, but and then he kind of stopped and turned around and was like, no, I gotta say this. Look, you need to look into what kind of clinic it was, Maria. Like,
Yeah.
I need to tell you, like, I know you don't, because he already told him I don't want to hear it. Because they tried to talk about it early. No more secrets. I don't want to hear it. And the way he walked back, I kind of felt that responsibility of this is a world religion, like a worldwide religion rather, and this is too heavy. Somebody's going to find out. You have to know. You
Oh,
have
okay.
to know before we give them a Pope Mobile.
I wanna save that or my commentary for Benitez. Yeah, Benitez. After these points I'm about to make, because it's the main reveal of the film. But about going back to crying and acting, not only did Adime, I cannot say his name. The Adedim, help me out. Adime. We're just gonna
I
say
thought it was
Adime.
Demi.
You probably you're right. Adime.
I
Besides
could
him
be wrong.
crying, Lawrence was crying at the beginning, at the very one of the opening scenes of the film
Yeah.
when he was standing over the Pope. He was really hurt by that. Like, he just lost his best friend. I really did. I love the acting. He was very, very heartbroken, and he didn't have time to mourn. as soon as they removed the body and they put the seal on the room, he was the dean. He had to run the whole show, and that's a hell of a large responsibility. So then
Yeah.
they did the time jump of 3 weeks
That's
later,
interesting.
and then like the second, third, fourth, fifth day of the conclave, he broke the
Yeah.
seal, went in the
Yeah.
room, and he
Yeah.
picked up the glasses. And that's when he mourned and was crying and sobbing. And that was a powerful scene to me too, right there, because
Very
that
powerful.
that was that was he's gonna have his feelings when he's in the room of the Pope that died, and the way he expressed himself right there, I really did appreciate. But I was also at the edge of my seat when Sister Agnes was outside of the room. I was like, "Ooh, what's going to happen right here?" And I like the way everything carried itself out. Later on with all the documents and stuff like that. But that was a
Yes.
really pivotal scene to me as well, because I was like, "Man, what kind of documents is he going to find? Like, what's going on?" And I don't know. I just enjoyed it. Your thoughts on that, if
I
any at
thought
all?
yeah, bro. Like I thought, first of all, Isabella Rossellini, I just love her so much. She's so incredible. And I loved her in this role. And there were so many lines that she had that were very quick and subtle, but packed with power. I mean, when
Mhm.
she said that, I know amongst you all we are invisible, but God did give us eyes and ears.
Yeah.
And I
I
was
was like,
like,
wow. Yeah.
oh, okay. I
And
love that she, oh no, go ahead.
no, she did. She did. She said what she said. Did a little curtsy and then walked off. I was like, ah! Mike, she just did a mic drop and then just left. But go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
That's my girl.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
she did that, I was like,
Yeah.
she was like, that's all I have to say. And I was like, that's all you have to say. You just blew up the whole world.
Yeah.
Like she
Man.
was, but she really spoke to me again, perception. I've heard so much from friends that have gone through like the Catholic Church and growing up and catechism and the school they go to about nuns. I've heard a
Hmm.
lot about nuns. I've heard a lot about nuns being strict and being mean and being tough and it reminds me of Doubt, Meryl Streep's role in Doubt. Just kind of that purse lipped.
Yeah.
Why are you standing out
Yeah.
here, little boy? Like there's this perception that nuns are just so mean. Again, it's perception. It's not my reality because I don't know. But I feel like she really captured the toughness of a nun, but also, and I love that she said it, how invisible they are. And I
Yeah.
don't know much about women in the Catholic Church. I really don't. I know that a woman can't be pope. I know that. And I know even outside the Catholic Church, there's conversations and argument. My parents got married by a female minister back in the '70s, and I remember my grandfather was like, "You're not really married," you know.
Oh
So
wow.
I get,
That's rude.
God rest his soul. I love my grandpa, but in terms of like religion and time, like yeah, women in the church of any kind, whether it's Islam or Catholicism or Christian or Baptist, women in religious leadership historically have been really made across the board to be like, yeah, you have a place, be invisible. But I always say it's interesting. People should read a book called Bad Girls of the Bible, which
Mm.
really highlights how, don't get it twisted, God does not put women in an invisible space. God chose a woman to bring the savior of the world into play. Read about Deborah, read about Ruth, read about Esther. There are some incredible women in the Bible that God was like, here's a huge mantle. I know you can carry it, do your thing. So I just want to get that right. That I don't
Yeah.
believe that the Bible's putting women down. I think religion does. However, I thought that it was fascinating how she, excuse me, took ownership of the young lady and wouldn't
Hmm.
let him in the door and was like, I'm in charge of the women. I got this. And she stepped to him and he was in charge. And she stepped to him like he had to really put down the hammer and be like, I'm going to do this. And it was kind of this back and forth. And she's like, no, you're not. And it
I
was
don't.
kind of this power struggle where I was like, that's kind of beautiful and interesting to me. I learned something about the women in the Catholic Church is like, it seems to me they really take ownership of what you have given me is mine and I'm in
Okay.
charge of it and you're not taking it away from me. And I'm not letting it go easily is kind of what I got out of that exchange. But then when she really realized that he's really trying to save the papacy, that's when she's like, "How many copies do you need?"
Yes, I did not like her initially for that. When she was being a butthole to me, in my opinion, I was like, I said to myself, I cannot wait to ask Kim about Saint Agnes, because
I
I
love
mean,
Saint Agnes. That's my
I, under-
girl, as
I
far as
understand
I'm
what you're saying,
concerned.
and I respect the fact that she was just trying to do her job. But I'm like, wait a minute, this is the dean. He not. It's not like he saw the woman by herself have an outburst. It was because she was engaged with one of the main candidates. So the dean has no choice but to get involved and just, inquire about what's going on. And again, I respect the fact that he was like, I need your confession. It won't go beyond this room. Like Lawrence had a ton of integrity. Even when he blew the spot up part one and then she blew the spot up part two, mind you,
Yeah,
all of the candidates' names are blacked out in the documents. Now, I don't know if the original Pope did that or he himself, because
he
Tedesco was
did
like,
it.
okay, because Tedesco was like, hey, wait a minute. All of the names are here. How you going to give us the papers to reveal this conspiracy, but then black out the names? He kind of has a point. But Lawrence was like, well, I'm not trying to throw nobody on the bus. I'm just letting you know there's something awry going on, and I want to leave it up to the people that are on this paper to reveal the names themselves.
Yeah,
And I was like, okay, I like that
yeah.
too.
Oh, I like
But
that.
that
Accountability.
yes, yes. He was like, look, whether if you was involved in this or not, guilty or not, just put your name forth. So there's just no secrets. And on a sidebar, I remember I was listening to a podcast once, and they was like, okay, there's tons of government secrets. I'm not gonna go down a rabbit hole of conspiracy and the Area 51 and blah 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 blah. But that was like, what if we actually lived in a world where there were just no secrets at all, like none. No, see, everybody knew the truth and da 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 da, and people wouldn't be able to
Wow.
handle it. Well, if you educate the people, then I was just thinking about. I thought about that during that scene to where Lawrence was like, "No secrets. We're gonna put it all out here, but I'm still gonna give you a chance to reveal yourself, and you can plead your case." And in a way, that did happen with John Lith. Wait, am I getting the names mixed up? No, with Tremblay, because he was like, "Okay, yes, it's
Hmm.
true. I did ask for the woman from Nigeria to come through, but it was because of the Pope." And you gave a great answer about 10 minutes ago on why that is, because it was inevitable. Like, let's reveal the sexual, um, the
Scandal. It's a
sexual
scandal at the end
scandal
of the day.
before you get
Yeah.
elected. But Kim, I want to ask you
Yeah.
this. I
Yes,
don't mean to,
sir.
like, you can comment on what I just said if you want, but you don't have to. But I want to ask you this. Do you actually feel that there was a conspiracy with the Pope himself, because he knew that he was getting sick? He knew that he was going to have somebody. He knew that somebody was going to have to come and take his place. So he didn't want it to be a deme, because he's like, hey man, he smashed somebody 30 years ago. Let me get Tremblay to call and blow up the spot at the lunch table. And then he had a thing with Tremblay, but Benitez said that they had the relationship, and his whole Cardinal thing was a secret. So he was like, okay, he had Benitez come fly through, get ordained, but Benitez spilled the beans like, hey man, I was born with a uterus and some ovaries or whatever. The Pope at the time that died, he knows the
Yeah.
history of all the previous popes. They said that was like they had popes in the past that was team Nazis, team communism, team ignore reports of sexual misconduct with children. For hundreds of years, it's been led by men. But how about we bring a woman into this too? Nobody knows this guy over here, this Mexican in Afghanistan. He may be the right person. And I don't know, because for one, when Lawrence gave his homily speech, that hurt his chances of being elected as the priest. But when the Benitez gave his speech in that auditorium, that motivated everybody to vote for him. Mind you, we don't even know who was responsible for the bomb outside. Could it have been Benitez? And it's like, okay, let me set this up, and then I give some speech that's gonna. I don't know. I mean, that's possible, but even if that's not the case, I really don't. And before y'all go crazy in the comments, I really don't think that Benitez was responsible for the bomb. I really don't. But maybe a 5% chance at most. But at the same time, do you still think it was a conspiracy between the Pope and Benitez to get him to come in and take the position?
It's a great question. Um,
And let us know in the comments. You know,
I think
and while you're
this is
thinking,
this is
I'm
yeah
going to say
yeah yeah yeah
I'm going to answer my own question and say no.
yeah
But it is
yeah.
possible. But go ahead. It
I
crossed
think
my
the
mind.
Pope
Is why I'm
himself
asking you.
had yeah. No, I get it. I mean, because it's the way he was brought in was so crazy. And actually at first I was like, oh, a crazy person made it into the Vatican. Ah, this is gonna be crazy. Because I was like, oh yeah, I'm a priest, but nobody said anything. First of all, because there's levels of priests. There's archbishops, like there was only 108 guys or
Hmm.
there. So like there one I know very little about Catholic Church, but one thing I know is there's levels. There's like your local priest down the street, and then there's the guy over him, like your mayor, if you will. But then there's like the governor, if you will. Like there's I think they call them archbishops. And if you're
Hmm.
Catholic,
Hmm.
please educate me. I would love to learn. So there's levels. So that's and then there must be someone that represents the U.S. and then represents Africa and represents France and Italy. So there's levels. So the fact that Benitez wasn't just a local priest, like he had worked himself up the ranks, but if you think of it, he was kind of like the priest of, I don't want to say the CIA, but a CIA, not an organization, but he kind of had to operate like an operative, like because I get why they kept him secret in Kabul is because there are some countries that are like, okay, we're primarily this religion, but we have other religions. And then there's other countries that are like, we're this religion, and if you're another one, I'll shoot you in the
Right.
face.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And so I understand why being a priest in Kabul, encouraging
Right.
people to be
So when you said
Catholic
it,
in
right.
Afghanistan, I understand why that wasn't an issue of like, oh, I just don't want to tell anyone because this guy's so cool. That was like, I will get him shot in the head if I say anything.
Hmm.
I totally understand why they kept that secret. And I think that's why he was more easily accepted. Why it was a shock. It was like, Kabul, what? And everyone was like, whisper, 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 banter, banter, banter. Like, I get that because it was just too dangerous. And he said he was in the Congo. That's another area where they're like, I don't care what kind of priest you are, I'll cut your hands off. Like, there are certain places in this world that are truly gnarly that people need to be reminded of as we all criticize our own countries. We need to remember, look, you may be frustrated with your country, but there's some places that are so gnarly, you can't have another opinion or you will lose your head or your hands or something. And so I thought that was interesting the way they brought him in. But I have to say, and one thing that was interesting, Brandon, in the opening scene after they put his body on the gurney, I feel like the director did an incredible job. And this is where Oscar talk comes into motion for me. They showed this whole mission of like, okay, we all gather, he's taking his last breath, he's passed
Hmm.
away, we cry, we mourn. And I was like, why are you so quickly getting the ring off? But then I
I
was
forgot
like,
about that.
there's this ritualistic traditions that have to take place that make us all perceive that this man is close to God. There's like God, Jesus, Abraham, and Johnny. Like
Hmm.
it makes us feel like that. But in the scene where they put him in the body bag,
Hmm.
they put him on the gurney, and the director's slick, but I got you, man. When they put him on the gurney, there was this thump
I did
of
not.
like,
I
this
was
is,
wondering if it's gonna wake. I was wondering if it's gonna say that. Okay, I'm sorry. Keep going.
bro, like even rewind it just to watch it because it's actually beautiful the way they did it. It was sneaky, but Edward Berger, the way there was that thump, and then with the sound, they put him in the ambulance, and then it was almost, I want to say 30 seconds, Brandon, where it just had the camera on the body in the bag, and the bag was kind of clear, and the body was kind of rocking because it was in an ambulance going down the road, and you're hearing the cart of the gurney go back and forth, and you're hearing the body kind of slosh around. For me, that was incredibly powerful because it said, I know you think this guy is this and grand, but at the end of the day, he's a body
Mm.
and he's a man.
Okay. Okay.
I
I can
think
dig it.
that's what I got out of that scene because I'm like, why am I looking at this guy in a body bag? And then I was like, this is deep. At
Yeah.
the end of the
Yeah.
day, he's just a man. I say all that to get back to what you were saying in terms of is it a conspiracy? Is I think one of the themes of this film is anyone but Jesus is simply a man that sins, has sinful actions. I don't care what you have on your head. I don't care what robe you're wearing. I don't care if you're a bishop, a priest. I don't care what it is. You're a man. And the
Hmm.
only perfect human was Jesus. That is it. You can be good, you can be great, you have great character, you can be a really truly wonderful guy. Like that's great, but you're flawed and you're a man. So in terms of conspiracy, I think the Pope had his hand in many different plans because he knew Tedesco was out to get him because they mentioned that his team had been leaking things to the press and saying things about the Pope. Like Tedesco and the Pope weren't
Right.
cool.
Right. Right.
It was like,
Right.
hey, how are you? How are you? Like we're in this, but I don't, you're not my dude. Like you're against me. It's almost like Trump and Biden having lunch. It's like, just because you see them having lunch don't mean they're friends.
Hmm. Hmm.
So a lot of nasty stuff's being said about each other. So the Pope, I believe, had his hand in many things
Right
because
on.
he's like, when I leave, I need to manipulate. I can't control it completely, but I'm playing chess. Y'all are playing checkers. I'm playing chess. I'm going to be gone. Lawrence is an honest guy. If he finds an envelope, I know he's going to do the right thing with it. That's why it was in his headboard.
Hmm. Hmm.
Something in him knew. I know he's going to get it. I know he's going to grab that. I think him hiding Benitez, the truth, he saw what we all saw at the end is he's not about the BS. He's not about, well, I want the power. Well, I'm liberal. Well, I'm conservative. He's
Yeah.
about the people and he's about the Bible and holiness. He's not a perfect man, but he's about the realness. And look, and I think it's the intersex is what it is. He wasn't a transgender. He wasn't born something and then chose something. He was intersex, meaning he had a man parts and he had ovaries and a uterus. So it
I
wasn't that
was.
he was completely a woman. So that actually happens quite a bit. Not quite a bit, but it happens. Like there's some women that have testes. Like there's interesting things that happen to the body and intersex and gender where it's not a choice. It's not a surgery that I got. It's not I identify as this because I feel this way. It's my doctor told me, bro, you got ovaries, dude. You have a uterus. It's not about choice. It's about what a doctor finds. It's about your DNA, XY, XX. So medically, he was not a man or a woman. He's intersex. Visually,
I
he's a man.
I was
Scientifically, he is literally 50-50.
I was
Scientifically,
I was
medically.
hesitant on what I was going to say about this particular topic because I didn't want to offend anyone. But I had one question
I
to
think where
ask
there's
you.
science, there's no offending. Honestly, where
It's,
science can back it up, there's no offending. If
well,
your doctor finds ovaries and a uterus, that's not offending. I see
hold on.
ovaries. I see a uterus.
I was gonna back it up with a line of dialogue that he had in the film that I may need to revisit before I comment. But I had one more question to ask you, actually two questions to ask you before we wrapped it up. But now I have three.
Mhm.
I'm a First question is, if it was up to you, who would you want to be the Pope? I have two choices. My next question is, oh man, I forgot. Oh, is there anything in the film that you agree with Tedesco on? Do have something to where I agree with him 100%. I want your commentary there. The third thing is what you're talking about now with Benitez. Um, I thought he was going to say he was a hermaphrodite. I think
That's
that's
another way to say it.
Yeah, I think that's somebody that has a penis and a vagina. We didn't. I don't think that Lawrence was going to ask him. So, do you have a penis? That would have been hella inappropriate,
Well,
in my
here's the
opinion.
interesting thing. We don't know because he didn't want to disrobe because I guess the guys get him dressed. He doesn't dress himself. So in turn, Brandon, you're not off. You're not off because he didn't want to let them dress him. They're like, "He won't let us dress him."
Kim, I'm sorry, I don't remember that. I believe you.
Yeah,
That's just
yeah.
beyond me, right? I just can't remember that. Okay, so that's interesting. Where was that in the film? Was it in the middle, the
When
beginning,
at
the
the
end?
very end, when Lawrence
Okay.
got the news of, like, what the clinic was, and he was, like, walking really power walking, and then he showed up at the door and was knocking, was like, I need to get in here." And the guy was like, "Hey, yeah,
Oh,
glad you're
okay.
here. He won't let us dress him." And he's like, "Yeah, about that. Excuse me." Like,
Okay, yeah, right,
you
right. Did you know that's what it was going to be before he knocked on the door? Did you have any idea, or you were just like, "Oh, snap"? Like, did you not know or
I
no?
want to say part of me was like, "Are you sure this wasn't written by M. Night Shyamalan?" Like,
Wow.
talk about a twist.
Yeah.
Wow. What?
And
Wait,
I'm trying to,
what?
yeah, I'm trying to
Brandon,
pull it up right here again at the end because I keep going
dude,
because
no freaking idea that's where they were going to go. Honestly, I thought what was going to happen when the guy was like, "You have to understand what kind of clinic this was," or it wasn't a hospital, it was a clinic. Because remember at the beginning, they're like, some guy shows up at our door during the conclave and says he's one of us, and all of a sudden he gets a vote. Okay, it's a
yeah,
fraud. I honestly thought this is where they were going, like after the beautiful speech and after winning everyone's hearts and after being so pure. I thought they were going to say, actually, this guy's from Jersey. His name's Danny.
that would have been crazy.
He was in the clinic was actually a nut house in Switzerland. Like
Yeah,
he's crazy. He found his way into the conclave. Like he's here. I thought they were going to say the FBI called us and he is a fraud. The clinic that he was in was for mental illness because he also thinks he's a butterfly. Like I thought they were going to say he was mentally and a fraud.
yeah.
And I thought the hospital was going to be like Shutter Island level, like like total Shutter Island. Like I'm living in a different reality. I thought he was going to be incredibly mentally unstable fraud. I had no idea that that's
Yeah.
where this story was going, my dude. Like what? Was
Uh,
your jaw just open, Brandon? Were you like,
I kind of said, well, no, because I know what a
what?
hyster,
What?
I know what a hysterectomy is, but there was a word that he used before that started with a P, and I'm trying to find it right now because I Googled it while I was in the middle of watching it. I was like, oh, he's a
Oh
woman.
my.
And so
Oh,
I see the dialogue. I'm glad I looked it up because I would have said something
good.
wrong. But I do respect the fact that Lawrence was like, okay, so you're still it said you're still a comma dot dot dot, and he hesitated, and he was like, I am what God made me, and I respect that, and
Yeah, I
I.
do.
I misunderstood. I thought he was going to say something like, "It's a man." Yes, we are all what God. I don't want to. I want to say something so bad, but it's going to piss some people off. Like,
I honestly think if you say something out of love, like it doesn't matter if it pisses people off because we're all ignorant and educating each other is how we're going to survive in this world, not judging each other for not knowing exactly what to say. So I would say you have a good heart, Brandon. Like just say it. Like
okay,
everyone, I
God
don't think you.
can for one thing, can God make mistakes? I mean, I don't want to go down the rabbit
No.
hole of the Bible right now because I mean, look, okay, why did He destroy the earth? If we believe in that in the flood, I mean,
Mhm.
it's look. I grew up a Christian. I'm still a Christian, but man, as far as me reading the Bible
But
and
we
knowing
still have
Scripture,
questions.
it
We
was
still
that
have
was
questions.
this was I am so far removed from just being familiar with the Scripture and the best way to comprehend it and then interpret it in different ways. But there's a huge
Yeah.
debate on where God makes mistakes or He doesn't.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
and I bring that to birth. Like, okay, if somebody's born with a birth defect that
Hmm.
makes their life much more difficult than somebody else's. I mean, and I know God does not get involved with free will. I mean, was that a mistake or was that by God's design? I mean, we all know that life isn't fair, but if somebody is
Hmm.
born and they don't have any limbs, I mean, that
Hmm.
sucks. It sucks.
It
the
sucks,
world we
but
live in
like,
is not designed for them to be mobile. Or you may think about this. Some people are born with birth defects because the mother doesn't have all her light bulbs screwed and she's drinking while she's pregnant or smoking and doing drugs. So it's like, where
mhm,
do you draw the line on a mistake or not? So I just say all that to say it was just really interesting to me the way that he worded it when he says that I am the way that God made me. And I thought about changing it, but I feel like that was a mistake. Like I am going against God's will or something. And I was just kind
mhm.
of like, I don't know. That was just kind of, I mean, if Benitez is happy with having an ovaries and a uterus and every other, I mean, that's it's his life or her life or both. But I don't know. That was just
Mhm.
really, I don't know how, I don't know. That was just really interesting to me. So,
Well,
my
I
point
don't
is
even
is
want
the
to.
conversation of if God makes mistakes or not. So, but
I think it's one of those things where we have a conversation instead of saying, "Well, here's why I'm right."
right.
I have something to say that I'm not going to claim as totally right. This is my opinion, and I think that's how we move forward in this world in love, and that's how Muslims and Christians sit down and have coffee and not walk away screaming at each other, is saying, I'm not going to make a absolute. This is just what I'm pointing to that I truly believe, and this is the evidence that I've seen. This is the education that I have, and I'm open to discussion. I think that's how we move forward in this world. So I don't think you're wrong for saying that at all, Brand. One thing, and I say this because you brought up something, such a good point. That it's so funny that you mentioned that example because I was going to use this example. There's a guy, and I forget his name, but his organization is called Life Without Limbs.
Mm.
Life Without Limbs. He's got an Instagram. Um, Dude travels around the world and tells people about the goodness. He was born with no arms, no legs. He's married to a gorgeous girl, and he's got 4 kids.
Oh,
4.
oh,
And his wife is freaking gorgeous. And he travels around the world. He
mm.
goes everywhere, and he talks about
That's
his
some good game.
life and the life without limbs. Check it out. He talks about his life. He talks about the trials, because the word of God says it will rain on the just and the unjust alike. If anyone has sold you some sauce, that being a Christian means it's all going to be perfect and you'll never be sick or sad again. Not only are they lying, but the Bible doesn't say that. It says the rain on the just and the unjust alike, but for the children of God, he will make beauty from ashes. So God, I life without limbs. I look at his ministry. The people have come to Christ because of him. The testimony he has. His kids all have limbs and are walking. And this amazing. I look at his family and I'm like, what a testimony! What beauty from ashes! God never puts someone together and goes, oh, I dropped it. Ooh, I guess I'll send that one out. It's not like a bakery where a roll falls on the ground. It's like whatever, just bake it. Uh, yeah, I believe that God doesn't make mistakes.
Oh, hope I didn't lose you there.
Headache that
Um,
would be. It's like you're.
okay,
Oh, I apologize.
you're good.
I was saying we look at things as what a headache this would be, and I don't judge who's going to say like no arms, no legs. Like, what are you laying in bed all day? And but God's like, wait a minute, I have something for you. Go to lifewithlimbs.com and check this out. And you're going to look at this guy's life and go, God, forgive me for saying that. I didn't know you could make such beauty out of such a tough situation.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening with Benitez. God knows what he's doing. God knows exactly how he looks naked. He knows exactly what his organs are. And God goes, you have no idea the great plans I have for this. It
That's what's
rains on
up.
the just and unjust. This isn't going to be easy, but the end result is greater than you can imagine. And that's why God is great. It's because he's outside of our thinking. We think, I don't want something that causes a headache or an inconvenience. And it's like, wow, then you don't understand what a blessing you can have. So it goes deeper. It's such a bigger conversation. But I actually love that you said that, Brandon. I love that you questioned that because God's not afraid of our questions. He's not afraid of our doubt. He's not afraid of our question marks going, I'm sorry, penis, vagina, ovaries, hysterectomy. I'm sorry, what? And he's like, sit back and let me tell you. He's a
Yeah.
relational God. That's what's so cool about, I thought, Benitez, was that he was pure in heart. And the Pope, to like circle back to your original question, like the Pope, Did he know and have a plan? I think he saw the purity of this guy. I think he saw that you've been to the Congo. Brandon, the stuff that happens in the Congo, when
Yeah.
they're battling against each other, they'll kidnap a kid, cut their eyes out of their head. The stuff they do is incredibly hard. To be a priest in those areas, that's why he's like, Tedesco, all due respect, you know nothing of war. You know nothing of war. I've been to the Congo, I've been to Kabul, I've been to Iraq. Like, he has seen the worst of it, and still his heart has such a pure filter and pure view, and has the spiritual maturity to lead a world full of people in different countries that want to be Catholic. He's got what it takes. He's suffered. And also, this comes with Christ. I don't think anyone can be a great leader without truly suffering. That's why Christ was God and suffered, because he's one with our suffering. You can't look in the eyes of Jesus and go, you don't know how hard it was. All my friends betrayed me. They ripped the skin off my back, one lash by one, and then they poured vinegar on it, and then they put me nails in my hand. I don't know about suffering. That's the cool thing about Benitez, is like, you can't tell me that this guy wasn't suffering through his life.
Right.
He's closer to Christ than a lot of these guys.
This is true.
I think it's I think it's an incredibly beautiful twist. Man, that twist was phenomenal, and I think the Pope did know, and I think he knew Lawrence would do the right thing, because at the end, Lawrence he looked out the window at the nuns walking across the cobblestone pathway, and he was like so stressed, like, I'm so glad this is over. And there was a bomb, there was a terrorist attack, that, to answer your question, the bomb, but he smiled, like this knowing smile, like, this is going to be a really hard and beautiful thing.
Quick, give me a quick answer. Give me a quick answer. Your choice for Pope: Benitez, Lawrence, Bellini, Tremblay, or I'm finna call the other guy Tenacious. That's not his name. Tedesco. You asked me to answer your two questions quickly. I'll roll them into one. You said, do I agree with anything that Tedesco said? And I do agree with going back to Latin, going back to in terms of going back to, because I think when you in certain things, not like if you go back too far, you'll find out we have no civil rights, and you and I can't drink from the right water fountain. So in terms of going back to the right things, there are certain traditions that come with religion that I think shouldn't be messed with. And I think I don't think Latin's a dead language. I think when you're speaking a language that was spoken amongst Jesus and his disciples, and Aramaic, being one of the oldest languages, the original Greek and Aramaic that the Bible was written in, I think there is something right and beautiful about keeping with certain traditions and not veering too far away. And in that respect, I agree with Tedesco on that level, and only that level. I think the best decision hope for me was Lawrence. I think that Benitez would have been a great pope after him. And that's not to say I don't believe Benitez deserved it, but Lawrence, to me, had the conviction. The conviction is the doubt. His speech to me was the reason why he should be pope, because the conviction is what keeps you up at night in tears. You should be up at night in tears, because it's the psychos and the a-holes that make a quick decision, that give you a quick no, because their heart is in the wrong place. But when you toil and you sweat and you have to cry through decisions, you have the conviction of the Holy Spirit. And I think that's what would make a good pope. And that's also based on my limited knowledge and perception of what the papacy is. Right on. Your comment about language in Latin, and I also thought about this while I was watching it. This movie inspires me. I wanted to look up more of the Tower of Babel. I know you remember hearing that when we was younger. I'm looking at it now. The Tower of Babel is a mythical tower in the Bible, in the book of Genesis. I vote Lawrence as well. And the thing I agree with Tedesco on is when they were the terrorist attack, the bomb. He was like, "Yo, we can't be weak. We can't just turn a blind eye and turn our head and just put our hands in our pocket. This is crazy. They in there chilling, minding their own business, and bombs are going off." So he's like, enough with all this. I mean, he didn't have to call out the liberals, because I just hate when it comes to that. Like, you paint everybody with a broad brush. Every liberal is not over here like, oh, kumbaya, let's love each other. I mean, we have some gun-toting liberals all over the place. And but I do agree with him as far as like, we don't need to be showing weakness right now.
Yeah.
Of course, we're not going to swing first, but I'm not just going to let you blow my house up and not do nothing. So,
Yeah.
last question. I know I was trying to wrap this up a long time ago, but do you feel that it was fair that what they said about Ademi and his views on homosexuality? Like, he just feels the gays should be put in prison and after that burn in hell. I mean, I know some. Do you feel that was fair or?
My thing is, we weren't privy. What's interesting about this group of men is that they closely follow each one's work,
Hmm.
because one thing I do know about the Roman Catholic Church is there is a collective desire for priests and nuns and archbishops to be of one mind. There's an appreciation for different thinking, but they do want to keep. I mean, think of it. The Roman Catholic Church, the Catholic Church is centuries old. There is a desire for us to be of one mind. So they are carefully following what one another thinks. So that comment might have come from something a Demi said. That might
Okay.
not have just been a judgment. These aren't guys that barely know much of, like, I don't really know about your ministry, but you cool. No. They have papers, they have essays, they're listening to each other's homilies, they're sending record, like the one guy was like, your homily was so great, I just wanted to let you know that I made a transcript from the recording.
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
getting each other's recordings. So
You're right. Okay.
I don't think that was a judgment. I think these guys know each other and they know their ideals. That
Okay.
could have been from a comment.
Okay.
That could have been from a clear, like that one guy when Tedesco up and was like, we need to do something. How do we know a Demi didn't stand up a few years past and be like, you know where they should go.
Right. You're right.
So I think these guys know each other too well to talk out of their
You know, I would think you make good point, but I would think if somebody did make a comment like that, that would get them kicked out of the convert or the church, or that this would be investigated
That's the
before they
thing.
even converted in the first place. Like, why? I mean, I don't know. Maybe a Dime or whoever else, these Nazis and all this, they said all this after the fact, but. I'm just thinking like you didn't know any of this before there was a priest, and again with this position, and they've been living this for the longest, more than half their lives. So I don't know. I'm just like, how are you if all these people have these views, how are you still in the
My
position you're
dude,
in? So it's
my dude, you're talking
that
about, no, to answer you, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you good. You good. Oh, and hold
To
on.
answer you,
Why
you're
you talk?
talking
Go
of,
go go
yeah.
go ahead and give me your final thoughts as well. So final thoughts and what
Okay,
you want to
final
say.
thoughts. So, one, you're talking about an organization knew that priests were messing with kids and never kicked them out, only moved them around so they could mess with other kids in another zip code. So, first, let's remember the organization we're talking about and
Yeah.
how many priests, how little amount of priests, if any, were fired once I found out that you abused a child. Instead, I just moved you from Montana to California. So, remember the organization, number one. And number two, my final thoughts is, whenever you guys see a trailer for something that looks a little boring and like it's conventional, I don't see anything blowing up. Where's all the guns? Where's the cars? I would challenge you to buy a ticket, watch the movie, learn something. That's what film is about. It's not about just feeding what I like. It's like going to a new restaurant. You might find out that you absolutely love asabuco and you've never had it before. Try it. Um, Try something new. Watch this movie. If you guys haven't seen it, it's deep. It's a
Mm-hmm.
conversation piece and it examines the perception of holiness and the reality of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Holiness versus humanity, the man versus the robe, the man versus the cloak, the man versus the title, the man versus the position. At the end of the day, we're still men, but it's the caliber. You have Benitez is you have your Benitez type people, and you have your Tremblays, and you have your Tedescos. They're all men, but of
Mm-hmm.
different calibers of honor. And at the end of the day, you better hope that's what gets voted in. And if it doesn't, this movie is a really great look inside of how that does or doesn't happen. That is and that is interesting. Oh no, I froze. And that's something I think we can learn a lot about. So give Conclave a try. And Brandon, you can quote me on this. I want to see. I want to see a best picture. I want to see a best screenplay. I definitely want to see the cinematographer nominated. The director definitely needs to be nominated, and if I better freaking see Ray Fiennes and Stanley Tucci
Yes.
nominated. I
Yes.
want to see those things. I want to see this Oscar season. It is Conclave is well deserving this Oscar season.
I agree. I agree. There you go. There you go. There you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that is going to wrap it up for me and Kimberly's recap reaction review for Conclave. That deserves all the recognition. It's a fantastic film. Don't sleep on it. If you have the opportunity to see it, check it out. I can guarantee you, you will not be disappointed. And let us know all your comments and stuff in the comment section, whether you agree, disagree. Let's have the conversation. Let's do it. I want to thank my guest so much, Miss Kimberly Curran, for tuning in, ma'am. I really do appreciate you coming through. And y'all, subscribe to my channel, but also subscribe to hers. Kim, if you you know, she has a lot of things that's brewing in the kitchen right now. So subscribe. I'm pretty sure she'll really appreciate that. And I'm pretty sure we're going to be collaborating on some other films as well pretty soon. And I'm very, very excited about that. But as far as I'm concerned, y'all help me reach 1 billion subscribers. If you're really interested in what I have on my channel right now, if you're into Squid Games that came out a week ago, I have that review on my channel right now. But not only do I have a non-spoiler review for the show, I started doing something new on my channel, reacting to full episodes. And so I have episode 1 full reaction, number 2, number 3, number 4, and episode 5. Okay, and so check that out. Also, I am part of the Frumly Challenge, Frumly family, because of E-Man's movie review. So tomorrow, Sunday, or I don't know when y'all will see this video, but it's going down. Make sure you check that out on my channel as well. I would really, really appreciate it. And guys, again, let me bring us up. I just want to thank you so much for tuning in. And before you go, don't forget that I'm B. Avery. That's Kimberly. That's just our opinion. Peace out, and we'll see you next time.